everyone? It's Kyle Henderson and Mick Gillespie. Breaking news. Steve Sarkisian is expected to be named the head football coach at Texas. They just fired Tom Herman. And just a couple days ago, we were, talking, we're all elated that Steve Sarkisian is staying after turning down Auburn. And of course, Texas pulls a trigger and, ESPN had it on just a little while ago. There's other sources reporting that he's expected to be named the head football coach at Texas. All breaking news. We're going to digest it. And, kind of why today, right, Mick? It's like the day after the Rose Bowl, the championship game's on the 11th. Alabama always has these problems. But Steve Sarkisian looks like he's going to be named the new head football coach at Texas. Your initial thoughts?
Well, congratulations for him. He's done a fantastic job as the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Look, the offense is as good as it's ever been. And I think a lot of that has to do with him and his ability to call plays and to get guys ready. And if he was going to jump, I guess now's the time. Not like today, but this year, because he's as hot as a $5 pistol right now. Turning down Auburn, to me, I'm glad that he did that selfishly and is leaving the conference. He could have gone to Arizona, didn't do that. Now he's getting one of the best jobs in football. Alabama has gone into Texas and they've just blown out recruiting. A lot of those players have been on the offensive side of the football. So, yeah, I get the move by Texas. This is a guy that you would definitely want. He's got head coaching experience. He's got NFL experience. But you know what? The timing, I don't like the timing at all. Like the championship game's on the 11th. Today's the 2nd. You could wait a week and eliminate the distraction. But this is not the way that the world works, And so this has been the problem that Alabama's had going into these championship games, is that these coaches come in and they get other jobs, and a lot of times they take the job and and then all of a sudden, instead of worrying about Clemson or Ohio State, you're worried about other things. And so this really changes the way that I see the national championship game playing out. It works sometimes. Look, when Jeremy Pruitt took the job at Tennessee and when Kirby Smart took the job at Georgia, they were still able to stick around and help Alabama win a championship. And then on the other side of that, Lane Kiffin was, from what I understand, cancer. And, as good as he is, and I think he's one of the best maybe the best offensive guys. And now he's a head coach, but coordinator, minds, whatever you want to say. Yeah. It was a distraction, and they lost to Clemson in a game that they really should have won. And if he'd have been there, I think they would have won. So, I think it's a great hire by Texas. There's not a better guy who's more prepared for this opportunity than Sark. My bone to pick is just the timing on it, and we'll find out how that plays out.
With Mick Gillespie kind of digesting this news that is breaking, really broke the internet following Alabama's 31-14 victory over Notre Dame in the Rose Bowl the day after. It's been reported that Steve Sarkisian is expected to be named the head football coach at Texas. You can't turn down Texas when Texas comes knocking. I think Steve Sarkisian always wanted to be a head football coach. Look, a lot of these guys that are on the staff have aspirations to be a head football coach. How many can be a head football coach at Texas? How many times is Texas going to be open, right? This is a job that everybody wants. And I think that, Steve Sarkisian, what he's done from USC to Atlanta, now with the Alabama Crimson Tide over the last couple of years has, he's really set himself up for this. This guy is in his mid-40s and has a dream job now in Texas. Now, look, Texas is going to have to, while they have the talent and kind of all the components and endless money, they're still not what Alabama is, right? And I think with, and I think this also says that Nick Saban's still going to be around for quite some time, right? And I think, there was some talk about some sort of coach in waiting or restructuring the contract. But even if you get Steve Sarkisian, let's say 3.5 at Alabama, which would make him by far the highest paid assistant coach. What is Texas going to throw at him? You know what I'm saying? Texas A&M, for example, what do they throw, like $75 million at Jimbo Fisher? I can't even imagine the contract that Steve Sarkisian is going to get as the head football coach. This is a job that you can't turn down.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I mean, you talk about forcing their hand too. I mean, if anything else, you get the Brockermeyers and those big offensive linemen and the other players from Texas, and then just to top it off, you get Kamar Wheaton, that's supposedly coming, right? But uh, if you're Texas, you're going, what's happening right now? How's Alabama coming in here and cleaning up? There's like a whole Lone Star State contingent that is heading to Tuscaloosa. And I think that's what hurt Coach Herman. I mean, not only the record and the fact that Texas really hasn't turned the corner with him. They've been competitive. They won their bowl game. He did a great job in bowl games, but it's the consistency that it takes to win. You got to win when you're at Texas, when you're at Alabama, when you're at USC. They want you to win most of the games. You're going to have the advantage player wise, but I think the recruiting part of it, and the fact that Alabama has come into Texas and really, picked that state, puts Texas in a spot too where, look, hey, we can make a move here. We're not happy with this guy. We're not going to get Urban Meyer. We don't like Tom Herman, so we're going to make a move. And every time you turn around, there's just another huge player from that state. Not that Wheaton was going to Texas, but maybe that's an indicator too. Why isn't Wheaton wanting to go to Texas? Alabama gets the top players in the state of Alabama, right? And to win a national championship at Texas, you have to take advantage of the in-state talent, right? I mean, we saw that when Texas was on top with Mac Brown. We've seen that kind of disappear, and then other programs start to get those players like Baylor, like TCU. Texas A&M could finish in the top 3 this year, maybe. I mean, depending on how their bowl game goes. Texas really hasn't been in the conversation since Alabama drummed them in the Rose Bowl back in 2009. It's gone downhill, and so bringing in Stark could be the move that gets things turned around. So we'll find out. But I mean, just the Alabama perspective again. We've seen this so many times. This is kind of the other end of going out and getting the best, is that their aspirations aren't to stay in Tuscaloosa forever. And it just the way that the playoff and, these championship games are so spread out, it hurts you with the signing day because you're getting ready for a game and everyone else is recruiting. And now it hurts you with your assistants yet again. And so you wonder what's going to happen. And I saw a really good point on the message board here talking about Kirby Smart's departure. And Jarvis is right. I mean, on the way out the door, I heard stories about, Kirby taking pictures of Alabama's recruiting board and using that against Alabama. I wasn't there. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've heard it from quite a few people to say that I do believe it. And, you hope that doesn't happen this time. Jeremy Pruitt did it the way that you would hope that any coach would. And Nick Saban really doesn't like it when these guys leave and take members of the staff with him. So we'll find out if that happens. Pruitt took Will Friend with him as someone that he really trusts. When Butch Jones just left to go to Arkansas State, he didn't really take any impact players as far as the coaching staff goes. So we'll see how that all works out. But at the end of the day, it's a distraction, and Alabama seems to always have to deal with this. And after watching Ohio State yesterday, all their focus, selfishly, I would hope, would be on the Buckeyes, but it's not going to be.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big blow. This is and the timing, I think, is really impactful for Alabama's quest for that perfect season, right? I mean, you wake up the day after the Rose Bowl, and let's get it. These guys on the team, they understand that these coaches are going to leave. But I mean, you don't want to hear that the biggest coach outside of Nick Saban right now is going to take another job at Texas. And I think you hit on some great points, Nick. I mean, you look at what Alabama has been able to do in the state of Texas recruiting wise. I mean, look, the names are all signed, but the transfer portal is a wild, wild west that we're kind of entering this new facade of things that go on when players aren't happy and they don't see playing time. Guys are going to want to play for Sark. I mean, the guy, as a younger coach, I mean, the guys that he's kind of recruited, now you kind of get a little bit nervous about what guys could transfer out, what guys want to go play for Sarkisian. Look, if Texas opens up, I mean, this is a job that you have to absolutely take. It's Alabama. There's like, what are there? Like 3 jobs that are like this, like Alabama, Texas, and what would be another one? I mean, would you consider like Michigan like a must take? I know they're not performing well, but like what else is up there?
I mean,
There you
that's
go. Thank you.
you got
Ohio State and Clemson, right? Like those are like the main jobs that you leave for. Texas is still one of them, even considering that they haven't even really, done much over the last several years.
Well, I don't even put Clemson in there, because I don't think South Carolina has the talent alone to be able to suffice. What Dabo's done there is really amazing because, they got to go outside of that state to get players to be able to compete every year. I mean, you could literally recruit Texas, Oklahoma, and win national championships. Texas has some of the best high school football in the country, if not the best, and we see great players per capita in the state of Alabama. But Texas is just a lot bigger. So I don't think there's many programs that you are even on that level. Michigan, they don't have the in-state players. They have a great coach that can't win. He's a great coach that got his team to the Super Bowl in the NFL, but he can't win. And that's kind of tells you that it's not always a slam dunk to take a job with, a big name school. I mean, look at Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, watching his post-game press conference that you can, watch for yourself on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. And he's talking about, well, we're here, we're going to keep coming back, but I don't think they don't have the talent to get over the top right now. And that's one of the biggest blue blood programs out there. There's these jobs like Alabama and Texas and Ohio State, where you're going to be in the mix, maybe Florida too. Maybe you put Florida in that same mix because of all of the in-state talent and the facilities and the support of, the community and, who knows who the president and athletic director is, but those things matter as well. The thing that I really like about this Texas job is the thing that happens when you lose. When Nick Saban took over at Alabama, we were just thirsty for winning football. Yeah. They had 92,000, including myself, that were at that first 8A game, that showed up to watch a practice game. And that really spring bolted Alabama to, kind of that recruiting thing that they were able to do that has never stopped and everything else. Texas is in that same spot right now. They expect to win. They have all the things in place to win. Austin's a fun place to go hang out. Everything's there. They just haven't been able to turn the corner. And bringing in someone that has the pedigree of Steve Sarkisian with high expectations, but with a lot of momentum, you add the recruiting element in there and the fact that he's been killing it in that state, and so has Alabama. It makes for a very good pick.
Here with Mick Gillespie talking about the news that has just unfolded. Steve Sarkisian expected to be named the head football coach at Texas. My name is Kyle Henderson. We appreciate you guys being here for this breaking news. I know it's shocking to a lot of people watching this. I mean, just a couple, what was it, 2 weeks ago that we were saying that he was going to stay, and now Texas makes a big move, fires Tom Herman. There was some smoke maybe about Urban Meyer that kind of fizzled out, and then Steve Sarkisian, definitely a huge name on the board. I mean, I think Steve Sarkisian, what he's done at Alabama and over the course of his career, I mean, he's worked for this, and this is certainly a job that you just can't turn down. Mick, is Texas still a place that can compete at the highest level? They got the funds, they got the athletes. I mean, this is a Lone Star state, but I mean, they just haven't crossed that threshold to become elite. I mean, every single time you turn the page to Texas, they're still underachieving at a large margin. What's it going to take? Because look, we talked about this many times. Texas is selling what could be, where Alabama is selling what is. It's going to take some time for you to build up a program. They got the athletes, but it's going to take 2 years, 3 years to really get a program like that on track. I mean, and let's face it. I mean, the attention span is short. You got to win almost immediately in today's world of college football.
Yeah, I'm looking at the message board. So for all of you Texas fans that are here, what is it? The welcome. This is a great hire for them. I think this is a great hire. This guy's way better than Tom Herman. I thought Tom Herman was a head scratcher when they made that decision. The timing stinks, right? But for Alabama, I wish that they would have waited. And but like I said before, I mean, obviously that's not the case. But as far as Texas goes, Texas is like Alabama. When Alabama had coaches that weren't very good, the program wasn't very good, and there was always excuses why, right? There was always a reason why Alabama wasn't good. Probation, this, that, the other thing. And then the national media started stepping in and, well, Alabama's just not what everybody thinks they are anymore. And then Mal Moore famously hired Nick Saban, and this dynasty is fire. I mean, it's unbelievable what the Crimson Tide have been able to do. And they were good before Sark. They'll be good after Sark, right? So remember that too. But Texas is, to me, the same thing. I mean, you got everything there that you need to be successful. I honestly, the 2009 Rose Bowl, I spent a lot of time hanging out with Texas fans. And the other thing to me is they remind me of Alabama fans. There's just kind of this been there, done that type of feel there. Enjoyed kind of the conversations about college football, love high school football. So, in the Texas, it's a really big school with a great football tradition. And, I think that as far as, just taking the Alabama part of it out, that this is a program that's on the verge of doing something. And then watching the team play in their bowl game, they have some players. They can do some things. I don't think it's going to take that long, honestly. And you mentioned the transfer portal. It is the Wild West, and I think they're going to make rules that it's even easier to transfer.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not a bunch of guys from Alabama transferring down there. And if history tells us anything, that really doesn't happen a lot. It just doesn't. You might lose a guy or two, but for the most part, the kids that have committed to play for Alabama have committed to play for Nick Saban. They may like Steve Sarkisian a lot. They may respect what he does, but I can guarantee you this: Alabama will find a suitable replacement for Sark that'll have 5-star talent all over the place. And just like Lane Kiffin before him, and just like, Brian Daboll before him, and just like, what was McElwain before him, and just like the other guy that went to Michigan before him, they all played for national championships.
Yep. Here with Mick Gillespie, digesting the news of Steve Sarkisian to be named the head football coach at Texas. There's a couple of things that I want to kind of dive into. We won't stay forever on this. I know. Thank you for joining us for this breaking news. Texas fans kind of asking questions. What type of coach is Steve Sarkisian? Let's dive into that. And then let's talk some possible replacements. We'll build out a whole offensive coordinator hot board on BamaInsider.com. One name that kind of jumps to mind right away. I know someone mentioned it already. They were like Hugh Freeze. They're like, throw the sink at Hugh Freeze. Look, the guy can win games, but it's we'll have to digest that in a second. But look, for Texas fans wondering about Steve Sarkisian, number one, he's kind of like a quarterback whisperer. This was the first guy to go out and offer Tua Tagovailoa when he was a young man out in Hawaii. You got to give credit to him for really developing that relationship with Tua Tagovailoa when he was at USC. And then you kind of look to the job that he did with, the past quarterbacks and really developing Tua Tagovailoa. And then look at Mac Jones. Mac Jones has been in this program under Steve Sarkisian. And I think the best thing about Steve Sarkisian is just kind of that offensive philosophy. He always talks about his philosophy being with a heavy run game that'll kind of open up this methodical pass approach. And we've really seen a lot of that this year because Mac Jones isn't taking deep shots downfield. It's more a methodical approach, 12 to 15-yard receptions. And, of course, when you have Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, John Mechie, it makes it a lot easier. In terms of guys who could potentially replace Steve Sarkisian in Alabama, someone was saying Hugh Freeze. You kind of look at the staff right now. Butch Jones was the offensive mind. He just got the head football coach at Arkansas State. You currently have Charles Huff, who's on staff as a running backs coach. He has also a title, associate head football coach. Who else, Mick? We're going to build out the hot board, but what about you in the comment box? Help us build the coaching hot board for the offensive coordinator. Who would you guys like to see? Someone is saying go after Joe Brady. What do you think, Mick?
I think it would be funny if they went after Gus and they let Auburn pay a salary for a couple of years. I don't think it'll be Hugh Freeze, because Hugh Freeze could have a head coaching job, and you're going to be in the same spot where you're going to be in the playoff next year, and he's going to leave to go somewhere else if you hired him. And Alabama kind of went down that road. Hugh Freeze isn't in a spot where you don't leave Liberty to be the offensive coordinator anywhere, even at Alabama. So he said he's going to leave for a special opportunity. I think it's going to be somewhere like Tennessee for him. But I don't know. I mean, like I'm so surprised by this. I really wasn't like going, okay, who the next offensive coordinator is going to be, because I thought he was going to stick around for at least for the rest of this year. And that meant all of 2021. I wasn't thinking like 2020, right? So I'm curious to see kind of how that plays out. There's a lot of good defensive coordinators that are on the market right now.
Someone already saying that in the comment box. They're like, well, Pete Golding's next. Look, I mean, they held Notre Dame to 14 points. I don't think Notre Dame has much of an offense. We'll see what they can do in the title game against Ohio State. If you're just joining us, we have 900 people watching. There should be 900 thumbs up. We appreciate you guys joining us for the breaking news that Steve Sarkisian expected to be named any moment the head football coach at Texas. I don't know. The news might be official anyways. We're kind of digesting this information. It's a gigantic blow to Alabama, especially like Mick. Let's kind of go back to the beginning of the show when we talked about the timing. Today is January 2nd. Okay. What's the difference between today and January 12th, right? You play the national title game. Everybody's kind of laser focused. You kind of keep it in between Sarkisian and his agent in Texas. Why today? Why do you have to announce that news today? I think it really upsets a lot of people just because of the timing. And then you think of the mentality from the players. These guys are like, oh man, Sarkisian's gone. I mean, he's still going to coach in the game, but I mean, why today and why not January 12th?
That's the thing that bugs me too. And I guess you got two trains of thought on this. Mine is you limit the distractions. This is going to be a very tough national championship game. Ohio State showed us last night that, that they're pretty healthy. They haven't played a schedule like anyone else. They're only 7 games in. They have a great quarterback. They can run the football. They were tough on defense. And you know what? Maybe they shouldn't have been in there, but they're in there, and they're going to be really, really tough competition for Alabama. I think there's nothing to say, but this is going to be really a hell of a football game. But then, to do this now, I mean, look, you normally take this day off anyway to kind of heal up and then get back to work tomorrow after what was really an awesome win against Notre Dame. So, I mean, as far as that goes, I'm fine with that. I think everybody's fine with that. But if I'm Nick Saban, I'm just not happy about why do it now? Why not just wait? And you got all this time to recruit. You're not signing anybody right now. You can't sign until what is it, like in February, right? Isn't that how it works? I mean, so what's the advantage of doing it now? For Alabama, I don't think there really is many. But for Sark, maybe you get a jump on things, you get your name out there. The other part too is, and there could be some contract stuff. Like maybe if they kept him on for another day, sometimes in these contracts, there are different, hey, look, you get an extra $3 million if you're coaching after this day. That's an entirely different world than me. Dealing with contracts and all that stuff. That's why, I work with Boomer Dangle with CSE in Atlanta, like let those guys kind of figure that out. So I don't know what Tom Herman's contract looked like. So Texas might have had to fire him. And then maybe they just didn't want to go through hey, we're actually looking. And then you have all the rumors and stuff. You just eliminate that and just say, hey, look, here's the guy. But I mean, I don't know though. That's just theory. Just spitballing. But look, I mean, there's one side of it where you really feel like Sark earned this. He's a great coach, and it'll be an awesome opportunity for him. And Texas is going to get someone that's, that is been through a lot. I mean, this is a guy who left USC, and I thought he did a good job as head coach at USC, and that was after doing a really good job at Washington. And and made some personal decisions that cost him, and had to basically kind of step back and Nick Saban brought him in and helped him, build his brand back again. And he went to the NFL, and Nick Saban brought him back again after a failure in the NFL. With all those stars, the Falcons really weren't able to succeed. He came in right after their Super Bowl run. And now, he leaves like probably with his value as high as it's ever going to be. Because unless you win a national championship or two. But I mean, just take an idea. I mean, just a step back too. I mean, look at Dabo Swinney. Yesterday, he's one of the best coaches ever. Get your butt whooped in that Sugar Bowl game, and and all of a sudden, there's a chink in the armor. So that's just the world of coaching. You got to strike while the iron's hot. I get that. I guess just like going back to what you said, and my thought is the same. I just think for Alabama's sake and to win a national championship, you really don't need distractions. When you're thinking about what's going on at Texas, then you're not game planning for Ohio State. And that's going to be the situation, and we'll see how Alabama deals with it. The good thing is that Alabama has a lot of players who have a ton of experience. And we're going to have probably a Heisman Trophy winning receiver this week, and and a quarterback who makes great decisions, and and is almost like having another coach on the field. So you hope that all those things play in if you're the Crimson Tide.
You look at kind of the pay scale for Steve Sarkisian to leave Alabama for Texas. Currently, Steve Sarkisian making $2.5 million, tied with Kevin Steele as the highest assistant coach in the entire country. So Nick Saban currently at $9 million, right? That's kind of the total pay. Ed Orgeron making 8.6, Dabo Swinney 8.2, Jim Harbaugh 8 million. That's amazing, right? That Jim Harbaugh's making 8 million at Michigan. Texas A&M paying Jimbo Fisher 7.5. You have to go down to Tom Herman, who is currently 11th. He's making $6 million per season. So you kind of look at where that is in terms of what Steve Sarkisian could get, right? He's going to get a better deal than Tom Herman. So you're maybe looking at, I would say, like 6.5 or something like that. That's what Lincoln Riley's getting at Oklahoma. So I mean, you got to take the money in that case, because what could Alabama probably bump him up to, like a 3.5, like we were talking about. And then you get like some sort of head coach in waiting. And then Texas is a job that once it opens up, you take that job. And just like you were saying, we have no idea who's going to follow Sarkisian, if any. You're not going to see this mass exodus, but you're going to have to recruit against Sarkisian in the state of Texas. And Alabama, as you know, as everybody knows, they went into Texas this year and got 7 of the best from Texas. Number 1 running back. They got a quality quarterback in Jalen Milroe. They got the Brockemeyer brothers. So, you kind of look at this from a recruiting standpoint. What is going to be the impact? Now you have Jimbo Fisher, Steve Sarkisian. And of course, these guys are going to have to continue to win. I mean, that's what it's all about. But this is a big blow. When we talk about the timing, don't like the timing because the Rose Bowl just ended last night, and then the news is released today. I'm sure it's going to be impactful for the players. Then this always happens, like we were talking about. I mean, the championship game is on January 11th between Alabama and Ohio State. And now, we kind of look at the mentality of this team and how they're going to go into this. I kind of looked at this game last night, Mick, and I don't think that Alabama called their best game offensively. Maybe this was on Sarkisian's mind. I mean, we talk about the reverse, and they only scored 31 points last night. Look, the guys were still productive, but we've talked about this before at our postgame show. There was no sort of offensive, kind of rhythm that we've seen in the past.
Yeah, it's funny because ironically, and I didn't say this last night, but when I was watching the game, Alabama got off to the quick start, and then it just felt like they got bogged down towards the end of the first half. And I said that this game reminds me of the Alabama-Washington playoff game in Atlanta. And I think the final score was like 21-7 or something, Lane Kiffin's last game. And I thought, that after that game, and I was sitting there watching it with Mike Johnson, our friend, 2-time All-American, and we just noticed some stuff. You watch all these games and you're like, man, something just doesn't look right. And I gave Notre Dame's defense credit because, they played well up front, and so I thought, well, maybe that, you get the big lead and you kind of just want to get the clock to 0 and move on, But maybe you're right. I mean, that when stuff like this happens, you as for us in our job, I mean, you have to go back and kind of say what if, and be objective. So maybe that's something that did play in. Maybe it didn't. I can guarantee that Nick Saban's not happy about this. I'm curious to see what coaches that Sark might or might not take with him from this staff.
That's a great point. Yep.
And if he's smart, he probably won't take many people because I think I've heard that from multiple people and Nick Saban's even commented on interviews before. He just doesn't mind if anyone takes a job that betters their career. And this obviously is going to better Sark's career. I mean, he's going to get paid a truck full of money. He's going to a great place. He's not going to Auburn, so you have to thank him for that. Stay focused and win one more game, and no one is even gonna care. You beat Ohio State, no one will ever hold it against you. You lose the game because the offense isn't playing their best and they're not prepared. Then there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be pretty upset about it. So I mean, that's just kind of the way things go, and I don't even know if that's fair, but that's just kind of the way that this thing plays out. But if I was him, I'd be really happy about this opportunity, and if he appreciates Alabama and Nick Saban like he says, then really limit the coaches that he takes with him.
Here with Mick Gillespie talking about Steve Sarkisian and the news that has just unfolded, expected to be named the head football coach at Texas. Gigantic loss for the Alabama Crimson Tide. I would assume he still coaches through the national title game, which will be on January 11th in Miami, Florida. And just like Mick was saying, look, Nick Saban, I think is probably upset, but he knows this. I mean, he knows this is part of, kind of the process at Alabama. I mean, teams are going to continue to poach from Alabama just because you've had Nick Saban. You've had that Saban mentality. And you look at what Sark has worked for, since, his tenure at USC and kind of the course that he's taken from the Atlanta Falcons OC job and now Alabama, where he's been fantastic. This is the hottest name in all of college football. I think him and Lane Kiffin are the two names that really jump out as kind of those younger coaches that are recruiting and coaching at the highest level and have that new age offensive philosophy. Look, I know you guys want to talk about the OC hot board. We're going to talk about that, probably over the next several days and come up with new names. So definitely go to BamaInsider.com and check out our latest offensive coordinator hot board as Alabama will look to replace Steve Sarkisian. The one thing that, that Mick said is, Alabama and Nick Saban, it's crazy. I know this is crazy, but he's always finds some way to find a better replacement. It's crazy because every guy that leaves, you're like, oh man, they're never going to be able to replace. Like when Jeremy Pruitt left to Tennessee, people were like freaking out. They're like, oh, they're never going to be able to, replace him. Have they replaced him with Pete Golding? I don't know. You guys can debate that. But Nick Saban's always able to find whatever position it is, running backs coach, receiver coach, offensive coordinator. Nick Saban has a plan. He's always playing chess. And, we'll see what he has to do. Any final thoughts on this, Mick, as we kind of close out here with Steve Sarkisian taking the head football coach at Texas?
Yeah, we weren't expecting the work today. Didn't Sam last night on the call-in show tell us that we had the day off? Yeah, surprise. We got some breaking news here. Tom Herman got fired because of recruiting. At the end of the day, like the record speaks for itself, but the fact that Alabama came in and plucked 7 of the top players out of Texas in his backyard shows that the momentum wasn't there for what Tom Herman was doing at Texas. And I saw someone on the board say, well, you just replaced one guy for another. Well, we'll find out. I mean, it's going to come down to recruiting, and Sark knows that, and being around Alabama and seeing the way that you build, it all comes down to the players that you bring in. I mean, you're on the Alabama rival site right now, and we're the best in the country as far as recruiting goes. Yeah. I mean, you guys know that. Who else stayed with you 10 hours on National Signing Day to break it down, right? Kyle and Andrew Bone and everybody. And the reason why that's important is when you win those recruiting national championships, that translates into victories on the field. I don't care how good of a coach you are. You put Nick Saban at Auburn with the talent that they had this year, or Texas. How many more games do you win? Maybe some, but not many. It takes having the right horses to be able to run the race. Nick Saban is, I think, the best that's ever done this, because not only does he go out and get the great players and have the top recruiting classes, but he's able to, turn that into winning on the field and players not playing selfishly. And making good decisions. And I mean, like, not only does Alabama have a program that you're proud of on the field, you have a program that you're proud of off the field. And that's, an area where you want to recruit the best talent and the best personalities and characters. So I'm sure that Sark's going to try to bring that to Texas as well. So you got to win on the field. You got to win on signing day. And the reason why Herman's out is that I bet you a big reason. I mean, it's just me speaking from experience, being around this for a long time, is recruiting. They got their butts whooped in their own state by Alabama, plain and simple. And, you want to sit there and try to say, well, I need to keep my job. When you're 7 of your top players are going over to the Yellowhammer State out of the Lone Star State, and you're the state school with all that tradition and everything else, that really kind of tells you that it's time to move on. So we'll see. I'm definitely curious to see who Alabama's next offensive coordinator is. But my hope is this. I mean, and this is, again, just being a selfish alumnus, is that Sark has his press conference and says, look, I'm not touching Texas until we're finished. Yep. And I thought that Jeremy Pruitt, who is an Alabama guy, I mean, look, he's an alumnus and everything else, been around the program forever, did a great job of that. I know he took some coaches that maybe Alabama wasn't happy about, but at the end of the day, they won the national championship. The defense played great, and then he went on to Tennessee. And who knows, maybe one day soon we'll have him back again.
You know what? I was just thinking about this too, because everybody was talking about kind of, starting to feel comfortable about Sarkisian taking over for Nick Saban. Should Nick Saban, exit out whenever that's going to be? Now it's like, that's off the table, you got to think. So you kind of look to, Nick Saban, and I think his contract ends in like 2023 or 2024. He's going to be 70 next year. So you kind of look at where things are with Saban and who could potentially be the replacement. I mean, that's something that you could also think about. I mean, with Steve Sarkisian taking this job in Texas, I think it's going to be, very interesting on kind of on all facets to see what happens with the offensive coordinator, who is the coach in waiting down the road for Nick Saban. Maybe it doesn't matter because the GOAT continues to do his thing on the field, as Alabama is now 12-0 on the season, getting ready to play the Ohio State Buckeyes in the national championship game. Wanted to come on YouTube for this national update right here, as Steve Sarkisian is expected to be the head football coach at Texas. My name is Kyle Henderson. He's Mick Gillespie, both of BamaInsider.com. Stay logged on, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss when we drop a video right here on BamaInsider.com. We'll have the OC Hot Board coming your way on BamaInsider.com. Have a beautiful Saturday with your family. Happy New Year 2021. Is off to an interesting start already, as Alabama's 1-0 on this particular season in 2021. And now Steve Sarkisian headed to Texas. We'll be back, with another video and, of course, more stories back at BamaInsider.com. Thanks for joining us today. See you soon.